Good morning, everybody. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to the Hurricane Hub discussion for the first day of the hurricane season, June 1st, 2023. Officially, the first day of the hurricane season, and appropriately, we're now tracking something that could potentially develop, especially as of this morning. You can see by the title card there, potential tropical system developing in the Gulf, and yes, that is indeed 91L, which is quite surprisingly uptrended overnight. It's really organized. It's convective structure, and it is definitely a much more formidable looking system in the Gulf this morning. We'll look at the satellite just a little bit, but because of this, obviously, I'm going to show the whole entire, text, not get it cut off. So that's why I'm kind of moving up a little bit. Anyways, the National Hurricane Center has updated the chances as of this morning for 91L to develop to now 50% chance. We're now in the orange, the moderate range for potential development, and they do say that storms have increased. Thunderstorms in the Gulf of Mexico have increased and become better organized during the overnight hours, and conditions are marginally favorable for additional development over the next day or so. And a short-lived tropical depression or storm could form over that time span as the system meanders over the northeastern Gulf of Mexico. However, by this weekend, environmental conditions will be less favorable as this system drifts south. And this will actually, very surprisingly, likely remain offshore in the Gulf and probably not come over land, over Florida or any places like that, which is something very not often do we have in the Gulf of Mexico, that we have these systems just kind of meander around and not really impact land, because usually the Gulf is very small, and usually storms go either this way, or that way. They impact land at some point in the Gulf, not this one, it seems like. And they do mention the potential for hurricane aircraft to go in to investigate this storm later today. So this might be our first our first official storm brewing after all. Especially if you remember yesterday, I was like, maybe this will form, maybe it won't. But honestly, this just goes to show how much things really change sometimes within the span of less than a day. We went from yesterday, not much certainty with this, to now that today looking a lot like this could try to develop at least over the next day or so before it will not have its chance to do so anymore. And the 7-day outlook is the same, 50% chance for this to develop the next 7 days and the next 48 hours. Meanwhile, nothing in the Eastern Pacific, of course. And then today is obviously the first day of hurricane season, so you also see this long part. They issue everything basically about their advisories and everything that they go over for the hurricane season, and of course the list of names for this year. And the first name will be Arlene. We've not used that yet. The system that we had in January is unnamed and will remain unnamed, so Arlene is the next name of the list. And could this be Arlene? We'll have to see. But as I did talk about, the satellite presentation, really, if you remember yesterday, we were kind of seeing this huge comma shape to the look. There was a lot of convective, scattered, dispersed, and not very organized convective activity, and it was also not very strong or persistent at all. And look at what we have today, a very much confined, tight bubble in the northern Gulf, and you could even see the low-level cloud action occurring. So you could definitely see that this is maybe some sort of system in the making. There's been a lot of persistent convection as well, and I'll go to the IR simulated satellite, and you can see here as well some of these oranges even up to reds, indicating pretty cold convective cloud tops, and those have been persistent for basically the entire morning so far. So this is definitely a sign that something is trying to get going. Andy Hazelton also notes this as well. I gotta turn off my phone because a lot of people are ringing me like crazy. Sorry about that. I'm not gonna end it. But we're going to continue, and I was mentioning Andy Hazelton saying that there's definitely a little something there with 91L in the Gulf, and he does mention that recent pressure falls to 1,009 millibars, about 3 to 4 millibars lower than the environment, with wind gusts over 30 knots. And he does mention, though, convection would have to be persistent for this to be a classifiable brief tropical system, which is understandable. Usually when we come to these tropical cyclones, we look for persistent moderate to deep convection, and this certainly does have that, and it definitely does look interesting. So will it be something? We'll have to see. But as of right now, this is the model intensity guidance initialized as of 60. I guess we're not really picking up on the fast development of this, but most of them kind of stay below tropical storm. Only one goes there briefly, but most of them stay as a weak system. Obviously, this is only going to have marginal conditions as well. But as I did mention before, the very interesting track. Uh, this is usually not something that we see, really. Most of the storms, as I did say, they usually kind of take a turn by going south, by impacting some sort of land in the Gulf, usually the northern Gulf, or sometimes Mexico or the Bay of Campeche, depending on where you are. But this won't do that. This is going to actually dip south over the next few days and kind of meander in the Gulf before it dies somewhere in the southern Gulf, where marginal conditions will slowly go away, and we'll start to see more unfavorable conditions for this to have to battle with, and potentially that'll be its downfall. But nonetheless, this will be something in the Gulf. This will meander around and then slowly, probably later on, drift northward as its remnants, but probably not impacting land to any sort of major degree. Let's see though what the models have. The GFS, definitely I noticed there's a little bit of an uptrend in the model. To take a look at that, 24 hours into the next 36 hours, you have quite bona fide vorticity signature in the Gulf there. You can see some of these dark browns here representing a lot of vorticity. 850 millibars, so 5,000 feet up, if you remember yesterday when I talked about that. And that does persist up until the next 48 hours, and then you start to see it kind of dying out. And then it begins to taper away, and this is by the weekend, so probably when conditions start becoming unfavorable, and then after that, kind of just drifts around. You can see maybe it's remnants of somewhere over here, but it's basically almost unclassifiable. Basically, you can see there's no sort of organization with this, especially once it more or less seems like it kind of gets towards Florida, but definitely not as a tropical system. This is more or less going to be something that meanders in the Gulf. And remember this, let's go to the HWRF now. HWRF hurricane models, so they should have a little bit more accuracy, especially when it comes to this. And I'm going to put on the MSLP 10 millibar wind, because this kind of does give us an idea too what the max winds are in the max winds that are in this storm, so maybe we could have an idea of the intensity too. And I saw the HWRF is actually quite aggressive with the intensity. They kind of have this, doing its thing. Already by the next 12 hours, they have this strengthening 1,004 millibars, and they already have this reaching 43 knots, and that's right around a 40 or so, a 45, maybe 50 or so mile per hour storm. That's the intensity they have it by then. And then this is, let's go to 24 hours and see where they are. 24 hours, they're already at 36 knots, so they're already in tropical storm range solidly. And then look at this, by 36 hours, by the time we get to tomorrow, Friday, they're already at 51 knots with this storm, 994 millibars, already a kind of small, compact system in the Gulf that tries to get going. And then as we head towards the weekend, they kind of have this dying out. So the models are generally showing the same thing, but very interesting, the HWRF is actually quite aggressive with this, though the HWRF has been known to be aggressive with small storms, especially once they do form, before they slowly start downtrending and kind of going towards reality, as we would say. But nonetheless, I think this just kind of goes to show the model consensus that something will try to get going, and it's not hard to see this, why this could be as well. You can even take a look at the sea surface temperatures in the Gulf, and they are 26 degrees Celsius in a good portion of most of the Gulf, especially the northern Gulf, where this is right here. The average sea surface temperature reading is at least 26 degrees Celsius, and then once it dips south in the Gulf, closer towards the central and southern portions of the Gulf, it's going to get even warmer, 27, even 28 degrees Celsius. So it's not hard to see why this does try to get going. And of course, you can even see it right now too. Warm sea surface temperatures, and especially yesterday when I talk about organization, it's definitely got a little more rounded. The vorticity signature is also there as well. You see those dark oranges and even closer towards reds there. The spin in the atmosphere is definitely there. This definitely has something going for it. And you notice today it's also a little more rounded too. If you remember me talking yesterday, we kind of did have some vorticity already, but if you remember that maybe it was a little more like oval shaped. It wasn't quite rounded more or less. There was just some vorticity there, but it wasn't really quite rounded. Now this morning, it definitely is there, and will be interesting. Will this try to develop? We'll have to see, but certainly things are beginning to uptrend, and maybe we'll see if this can try to sneak in a name for the start of the hurricane season. But of course, as I did mention, this will try to develop, but this will not be anything that'll be too long lasting, because you can take a look at the Gulf. Wind shear is still high, though. Very interesting. Specifically right where that system is, the wind shear has begun to drop. We're now at 15 knots there in the Gulf of Mexico, right roughly near where 91L is, maybe a little bit south of it. But wind shear is still high generally in the Gulf, and that'll probably get to it, especially once we're in the southern Gulf. You can see the wind shear there, values 25, 30 knots. So I guess the rain of this trying to do something, or I guess you could call it a rain, or this, having its chance, will definitely be there over the next day or two. But watch it, because this is not really going to be too long lived, especially once it gets towards the southern Gulf. Will not do much. And as for impacts to Florida, not really looking likely right now, as it's just kind of going to meander around in the Gulf and eventually die out. But still, this could be something to talk about on day one, which it is today. Today, as I did mention last night, if you saw my video, June 1st, today, 7 o'clock. Once again, going to remind you guys, I'm doing a live stream, day one of the hurricane season. We're going to have all types of things going on there, and I'll even show you here on my channel. I already have it scheduled, day one, the hurricane season. It's an upcoming stream. It's already scheduled on my page. I think if you go on my channel page, you could see it there that it's scheduled. Once again, 7 o'clock today. Tune in. I'm going to have some of my friends on. We're going to talk about tropics, of course, 91L. Maybe it could already be a system. Maybe it could even already be a system by the time we get to this evening, especially if we take into consideration recon that could go in later this afternoon, and I'm pretty sure they will, especially with the organization it's presenting right now. We'll have that, and plus new predictions. We'll have a lot of stuff going on today, and rightfully so. It's hurricane season. Things are beginning to pick up. We're going to have a lot more to talk about the tropics soon, and certainly in the next few weeks and months we'll have even more. But that was just a quick discussion for this morning. Tune into this evening. We'll post any more updates today before the live stream tonight, if necessary. Till then, stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to all. Subscribe, of course, especially if you want notification for the live stream. Subscribe, share with family and friends, and enjoy your day.